Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special open class with Ali in the studio. Welcome.
Hi, Daniel.
Nice having you back. And for those of you who don't know Ali, she's been a guest twice before. One sharing her own journey from like having a lot of trouble sleeping to doing really well, and one where we did open class before. So nice having you back. And I want to share also with the community here that you are actually becoming a sleep coach.
Yep, that's right.
Super exciting. And by the way, what made you kind of decide to do that?
Actually, it was like the topic in general was kind of interesting because the more I started learning, the more obvious is like it seemed to me that the whole like story around like insomnia, it feels like scary. It looks scary, but when you really get it, it's like nothing. And I just wanted to share this kind of like clarity with others who still like kind of this thing they still struggle. And I just thought like if by any chance I can help someone, then it could be really great. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
100%. So glad to hear this. And I'm so glad you enrolled, and you've already helped so many people. And actually, let's do. I won't, usually in the end I share like where people can follow you and things like that. But just so I don't forget, you have you're pretty active on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I started on Instagram like more months ago, but then I stopped for a while, and then I again like kind of like refreshed it. Yeah, and now I'm more active there. So. Yeah.
And it's sleeptalks.ali, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
Well, I'm going to write it down for everyone. Sleeptalks.ali. Like, oh shoot, I made it. Of course, I made a spelling mistake. There it is. And by the way, I want to ask you, like, is this like the illustrations that you have, or do you make them yourself?
Yeah. I also draw sometimes. So yeah, I just decided to put together more things that I like to do, and yeah.
No, they really. I saw the first one, and it was like, oh, this is really nice. I wonder where she got this drawing. And then it was the more. Then I was like, oh, maybe she makes them herself. This is really nice, super nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So cool. Well, actually, so first thing, speaking of Instagram, before we go into the three messages we have today, I read like a sort of like a blog on Instagram that you wrote, and something that really, I thought there was a really good teaching point there about like how you can almost like prove that even someone who says that they fall asleep with no struggle, they probably wouldn't do that in certain circumstances. So do you want to share that with the community?
Yeah, of course. So basically, it started when I received like a question, a person asked me like how to fall asleep in 5 minutes, and I was like, I just started thinking like, like there are so many things that kind of like promise you, like quick, like falling asleep, like on the internet, whatever, you can look for some like crazy techniques or whatever. But then the reality of sleep, which is like you cannot really control, you cannot make yourself sleep. So it seemed like there is so much like a misunderstanding about time and sleep. So I decided just to dedicate like a little bit of time to this topic of time. And so basically the idea is that people think that they like that sleep is like under their control, and that people who sleep well, they can make themselves like fall asleep like easily. And this kind of like division on good and bad sleepers is something that creates so many like problems for people who struggle with sleep, because they think that good sleepers, they can fall asleep like within 5 minutes, and they always think that there should be something that they can also do, and like to fall asleep in short time. And then when I started thinking like how to approach the like how to explain this, and then I started thinking of people who actually like whom I thought were like good sleepers. And I just like imagine like, what if this like if this person would be placed in the conditions where he would have to kind of like perform, like to show that that he can sleep like fall asleep in short time. And this is how I wrote about this kind of like thought experiment where if you imagine anyone with like really like not perfect sleep, let's say, and you ask this person to, you know, like, okay, show me how you fall asleep in 5 minutes, and I will just look, I will sit here and look at it, and I will just like keep an eye, and when the time runs out, I will let you know, or whatever, you know, like that's like, you know, this time passed. And I just imagined it, and it really like, it didn't make any sense that something like this is actually possible. I'm sure that person who would have this kind of like will receive this sort of requests immediately will start like, you know, feeling like, okay, now it's time to perform, and then there will be a lot of pressure on sleep, and of course he will not be able to fall asleep in that short time. And I think like what, you know, and then maybe people will say like, okay, of course, but when you're checking, then of course like person is difficult, like when you're looking at someone, it's difficult for this person to relax and really fall asleep. But this is exactly what we are doing to ourselves, you know. We are those kind of like those strict teachers or whatever, you know, who say, okay, now it's your, you know, we put your, you know, ability to sleep to test. And then of course like you create a lot of anxiety and pressure for yourself, and of course you are not able to fall asleep in short time. And my idea is that like, so if you want to fall asleep within like, let's say 5 minutes, 1 minute, like 10 minutes, whatever, it's not possible if you are like, you know, you are doing it out of this kind of desire to, you know, like make yourself like, when you're fixed on this time frame. But it is possible like to fall asleep, you know, like in short time, but when you are not really aware that you have this need, you know, when you're not thinking about sleep. So of course it can happen like very quickly, especially if you're physically like ready, you know, like you've been awake for a long time and so on. And also like lack of this desire is something that really can put you, you know, to sleep very fast, but not when you set it as a goal, you know, like give yourself like, you know, like a timer, you know, and say, okay, let's perform now. And like no one can do it, like not even the best sleepers in the world, they cannot simply do it. And this idea that that people who struggle right now with sleep, that they can actually do that, it's kind of like they're trying to do impossible. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just to kind of like for anyone tuning in here, like kind of like the way I saw it, and this is going to be like a mini summary, is like I saw it in my head, like what you described, somebody who's like never had any trouble sleeping, and there's like 3 people in like white lab coats with a timer and sitting around and like, okay, go, right? And of course they're not gonna sleep well in those conditions. And as you said, many people have that internal white coat person, like go go go. So very well said. So now, yeah, so let's jump in here. And our first question is, this is kind of a long message, and I was like thinking, can I cut it down a little bit? It was impossible. So I'll just read the whole thing, and then we will comment on, I think, several things here. So this is from Natasha, who says the following. Dear Daniel, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you, and don't forget to review it. Your insights on the root cause of insomnia, as well as hearing the stories of so many people having exactly the same type of struggles, have worked wonders for my sleep. I've been suffering from a persistent, moderate insomnia for over 10 years and pretty much accepted it as something I will have to live with. Last summer, things got very bad after reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. That book triggered a horrible bout of insomnia for me with multiple consecutive 0 sleep nights. I was seriously worried that I would damage my health irreparably in some way. Shortly after that, I found your podcast and I've been a devoted listener ever since. Gradually, my sleep improved to a point of me often falling asleep the moment my head hits the pillow, something I never thought could be possible for me! Exclamation mark. Wow, I didn't see this before. Super glad to read this part, Natasha. However, I carry all these battle scars from 10 years of struggle, and external disruptions to my sleep routine can throw things off balance very easily. Recently, I've not been having a good time. I go to bed quite late, around 1 a.m. I have loud roommates and find it difficult to relax until everyone else has gone to bed and get up at 8:30. This schedule has been working really fine for me, but now we have a new neighbor on our block who has a dog who likes to bark a lot, and he lets it out in the yard at 7 a.m. This barking woke me up a few mornings in a row, and gradually I became hypervigilant about it. I started keeping the bedroom window closed and switching to using extra thick earplugs, which makes the barking sound really faint, but my brain has decided that it must watch out for the dog's barking, as if my life depends on it. I now spontaneously wake up at 6:50 and 6:30 every morning, hyperarousal immediately kicking in, and spend the next 2 hours trying to fall back asleep while straining to hear whether the dog is already out. It seems like being barely able to hear the noise actually made things worse, as my brain works extra hard at trying to discern it. Dear Daniel, how do I get out of this vicious cycle? One mistake I'm making, as you might have noticed, is checking the clock. But other than that, how do I convince my brain that it doesn't have to pay attention to the dog? If I say pick up a book once I find myself awake, I will still be listening to whether the dog is out there barking. Should I listen to something in my headphones to distract my brain entirely, or should I just get up and start my day as soon as I'm awake? The barking, of course, continues until I leave for work, making it further difficult to let go and forget about yet another night of poor sleep. Thank you so much in advance. Really appreciate your help. Wishing you all the best, Natasha. You too, Natasha, of course, and thank you for sending us this message. And what are your thoughts, Ali, when you hear this?
Yeah. It's actually really great that after she started like watching your channel that it improved, and then she already noticed a lot of things that, you know, that even though like 10 years or whatever, like how much time she had like with this struggle, that it's still like, it's not the matter of how long it was, it's how much you are attached to the result, how much you learn about sleep itself. And now it seems like she started having trouble with you know, like with the dog and everything else, that she thinks that it's somehow related to poor sleep. And in reality, I mean, of course, like anything can disturb our sleep, you know, like whatever, it can be light or whatever sound, anything, but it's not the thing that keeps insomnia coming, you know, like persistently. And I think in this case, what is actually like the crucial moment was when you read that she started doing things to avoid, you know, prevent her from this noises from the dog and so on. So like buying the earplugs and so on. And basically, also she mentioned that that silence, it kind of like becomes like more like creates more tension for her. So I think that the problem is not in this kind of like a silence or whatever, that brain is like now you know, behaving somehow or like weirdly. It's just the thing that she like she tries to eliminate any possible like obstructions, like, or you know, obstacles to sleep, and this kind of like behavior kind of is another way how you go to the like down the rabbit hole, because you're trying to make all the things perfect, and once they are kind of perfect, yeah, right, you don't hear the dog barking that much, but even though it still causes like a lot of pressure, because you like I think there is still like a thought that you can somehow, like under the right circumstances, the sleep has to come like no matter what. But in reality, it's not this. It's actually like the way how we react to all sorts of like things around us, you know, like if you perceive like I don't know, like let it be like a dog or light or any sort of noise as something that is like really, really bad, and you start like kind of obsessing about it, then it becomes a problem. Your reaction is in a way problematic, but not the source itself. I think so. I don't know what.
Absolutely. I totally agree. You said it really well. And I think a couple of things on my mind were like, first of all, that there's like, when you've had this kind of fear for many years, you made a good point, which is that actually when you start learning, it doesn't need to be that if you have trouble sleeping for a long time, it's going to take a long time for you to sleep well. It's all about how soon the brain sees that there's nothing to worry about. And Natasha experienced this, which was great. Now, that said, there's still these kind of patterns of fear in the brain that can linger for some time, and the dog barking can of course trigger that. It's like, it's really just dog barking, but they can trigger that. What if this happens? What if that? What if I go backwards? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing strange or unusual about that. And now there was somebody, I think who was a guest on this channel, who said that, oh yeah, there was noisy neighbors, right? And he was able actually to talk to the neighbors And so they stopped making any noise. But guess what? He was still like, what if they start making noise again, right? And same thing with the dog. Even if you were able, if the neighbors moved out, then they could still be like, what if I have another neighbor with a dog, right? So again, it's not the source that is the problem, it's the response. Exactly. So, okay, getting practical then, like if you're in a spot like Natasha, what should one do? And kind of my immediate thought becomes like, okay, you know, I think Natasha said it well. I think if you need an alarm, it usually helps having an alarm, so kind of that just, you don't need to check the time. But other than that, you know, when the dog barks and you wake up, then instead of kind of the instinct, the knee jerk being like, how can I stop this from happening so I can sleep? Then go towards, okay, I hear the dog is barking and that kind of disrupts my sleep, but it's nothing. You know, I don't need to try to stop it. I can still maybe do something I like to do, or maybe just take note of my own reactions to the dog, or anything that leads you towards like not avoidance is a step towards like peace and sleeping well. That's kind of my go-to thing. But what do you think, Ali?
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to add, like in general, like understanding what is happening at that moment, that it's like not the like there is nothing wrong going on with you or the brain or whatever. It's just like that's how the brain like works. Like once you teach it to react or to look out for some danger, because at the moment, for example, this dog barking, it does like seem like a danger, like a real danger, and also being reinforced by behavior, you know, like avoiding something and so on. It's really like the brain kind of understood, okay, this is something I need to be looking, you know, looking out. And I think that just understanding like that it's like nothing but just the way how brain works, and not kind of like feeding this, you know, exactly as you said, like not trying to avoid it, just accept, like, you know, being aware of it, and keeping like, you know, keep on learning, keeping like educating yourself about sleep in general, that there is no mystery about around it.
100%. Yeah. Very well. Cool. So let's hope that helped, Natasha, and so happy that you're doing so much better. And oh, by the way, I almost forgot to mention, let me just write this down real quick. So a lot of people have read this book called Why We Sleep, and it is very problematic. But if you have, you can Google Alexei Guzey, who just Google Alexei Guzey, and you'll see that he's written like the essay on the book Why We Sleep, where he basically completely discredits it, and there's so many factual errors, so many problems with that book. So it's good to know that it's really not what you write there is not true by any means. So that can help a lot of people. Okay.
Yeah.
So let us move along here. And okay, so Jake has a question. He says, hi, Daniel. Is there any evidence towards sleep chronotypes? I'm told I'm a night owl because normally I'm up till the early hours out of choice. I would happily sleep until noon if I could. However, other commitments mean I have to be up by 9. This cuts my sleep down to 6.5 or 7 hours. I feel refreshed upon waking and don't struggle with brain fog, but will my health suffer as a result? A lot of my family sleeps 10 hours a night, so is 6 hours really enough? Feels enough for me, but I was just wondering from a health perspective, is this okay to continue this way, or should I increase my sleep time? This is Jake asking, and I can start commenting on a few things here, which was number one, just reiterating that sleeping short or having insomnia has never been shown to have any health consequences. There's really never any need for anybody to be like, I need to sleep more so I'm more healthy, like in terms of like diabetes, health. No, not at all. And you know, as a lot of the community knows here, the more you try to sleep longer, of course, the more struggle you're going to have. So that's one aspect here. But then we have the other aspect, which is the whole like chronotype idea. You know, is it problematic if I'm a night owl and I have to get up early, or vice versa? And it's often a lot of questions about this, but overall, like, do you have any questions or thoughts on this one, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really like I didn't study that much this kind of like chronotypes, but I think that whenever you try to kind of like force yourself into some like limits which are not like natural to you, you're doing it out of desire to get better sleep or something, this is generally not helpful, because you're trying again to fix something that is not, you don't have power to fix it, because like it doesn't work like that. So I think that if you say that 6 hours is enough and you really mean it in a way that it allows you to do your stuff like during the day or whatever, like without having this problem that okay, you need to get better at the sleep, then I think it's okay. But if you're doing this narrowing this the sleep window just because like to improve sleep, I think you need to be like careful not to put too much like like stress for like on yourself, because then it can actually backfire and you will start like monitoring sleep and putting some like on like a lot of pressure on yourself, and this will be counterproductive, I guess.
Absolutely. And like if you sleep this amount, you feel good during the day, I say like that sounds great, And I guess the last thing I want to add here is that the idea with the chronotypes is it's a very simple idea actually. Is that some people have a preference of like being night owls, sleeping late and waking up late. Some other people want to like go to bed early and get up early. And if you look at the literature, it's kind of like it suggests that there is a familial component, that if your dad was this, they're that, and blah blah blah. Which it wouldn't be surprising at all, right? Like all things are familial. Basically, everything is, right? So the only thing I want to add here is simply this: that yes, I do believe that there is some preference. Some people tend to be more like I like this. Some people tend to like this. But if you are sort of a night owl and you have to be up at pretty early for job purposes, that doesn't mean that much. It means kind of like, oh, you're not going to sleep maybe at what you think is ideal or like what's your preference, and maybe you would feel better if you slept a little later and woke up later, but it's not going to affect you that much. We can move from one country to another and we can do all kinds of things. So I just think it's like everything else, it's helpful to know that it's not really a big factor. So many other factors affect your life quality and sleep quality much, much more than that. Okay, so let's move to actually it's the last one. We are going to look at a message from Jocelyn. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for answering my questions last time. Anytime. I have a few additional ones. In some of your videos, you talk about how we shouldn't look at the time. I'm wondering how to not look at the time when I wake in the morning. I notice it's getting brighter, and I can guess the time is around 4 or 5. I always look at the time to see if I should just get up and start the day. Also, sometimes I wake up early around 4 a.m. and I think I feel rested and I'm awake. I decide to get out of bed, but then start to become fatigued an hour after I wake up and have a headache all day. What would you suggest to do? Sometimes I can't tell in the mornings if I've slept well or not until an hour after I wake up. And I need at least 7 hours of sleep, or else I get a horrible headache all day and I'm very tired. I also have a hard time not getting frustrated when I wake up in the morning before my alarm. My alarm is at 6. For example, today I woke up around 5 and I went to bed around 9:45 p.m. I thought I should be fine to wake up because I thought I slept around 7 hours. But I know my sleep hasn't been restful because I had a headache an hour after I woke up and I was dizzy and fatigued all day. When I was awake around 5 a.m., the first thought I had was, dang, I'm awake again. And I tried to go back to sleep, but couldn't. And I get out of bed at 5:30 a.m. How do I fight these frustrated thoughts when I'm kind of half asleep, when I awake in the early morning? I feel like I can't control it. I also have a hard time not thinking about the sleep during the day because of the headache and fatigue. Always just reminds me that I had a bad night's of sleep. I feel like nothing's improving, even though I'm trying to not think about sleep as much anymore. Best, Jocelyn. Okay, Jocelyn, thanks for sending these questions. And there was some kind of like several different things I actually talk about. But on your end, Ali, like what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear this?
Yeah. In general, like the idea that like when you connect like things that you address, that the poor sleep is connected somehow with headache, is also can be like a little bit like questionable, because there is like, I'm just looking at my experience, that I had like nights when I had like poor sleep and I did had headache, like as a result, or whatever. I thought that it was a result. But once, like, I started getting a little bit better, in terms of like how I was not like really attached to the outcome, and the sleep was coming easier. And then I noticed that sometimes, even if I sleep well, that it's still like, I might still have headache, or, or this kind of like weird like combinations. And it made me think that maybe we are trying to look for connections where they aren't really. And I would assume that maybe like generally having like because like when you have like insomnia, you usually have some sort of like anxiety, or like you're trying to solve this problem, you're really like dedicating yourself to resolving this problem. And I think this kind of like stress can also put some sort of like it also can exhaust you in a way that it can develop like some headache, and maybe it's just the reaction on how you perceive sleep in general. So it doesn't necessarily should be that the lack of sleep or something like this that directly causes headache, but maybe thinking about like the way how you look at sleep and how you react on it through like the stress and everything, that this is something that might actually like create those headaches. And I also think that in a way, I mean, of course, like it's if you are concerned with your health, it's good to generally just to check like with doctors. But I think that on myself, I know that even if it's like non-related to stress or to sleep, my stress can cause like headache. It's this kind of like a self-fulfilling thing, like I might start like thinking about something, and I would immediately like feel like kind of like worse or something like this. I might have headache, or I might have, I don't know, whatever, like other symptoms which are not related to exact issue, but I think it's mostly like our reaction, like how we react to certain things can become like one of those symptoms, like headache or like fatigue or anything else. So yeah, just that's
absolutely. And you made the point that oftentimes we can have a headache even if we slept. I think like Jocelyn said herself, like even sometimes she slept those 7 hours and she still had a headache. And in another way you can kind of say the same thing is look at like, okay, percentage wise, like how many percentage, what I want to say is that if you think like your headaches are like 100% attributed to your sleep quality, how much you slept, then there will be a lot of pressure sleeping, and that will not lend itself to sleeping well. But even if you go to like, oh, maybe it's just 25%, even that could be like, oh, that's less pressure to sleep. And that could just something like that, just considering more factors can really help. And what was the other thing? Well, okay, we'll come back. But so the one thing that Jocelyn asked in the beginning was, how do I not know what time it is? And I understand this one because it's like you have an alarm set for, I think it was 6, but it's kind of light out. And I think Jocelyn's like, I kind of like just want to know if I should get up or not get up. And, to her question there, like, how do I not check the time? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the one is like pretty obvious, and you also mentioned it in previous like episodes, probably that you just simply like put some cover on the time so that you physically not able to access anything that has like screen or any like doesn't show time. One thing, and I just wanted to say that like you can do that, and the thing is that even if you happen to look at time, it just sometimes happens or whatever, just don't perceive it as something that you sabotaged your journey or something like that. Just take it as some like, okay, like nothing happened, or just take it like lightly. In general, it is good not knowing time and not obsessing about it. Like you can put away the let's say you have like normal clock that shows time or something, you can put it away somewhere else, or you can put a sticker on your laptop, or where the time is, and so on. But even if you happen to happen to look at time, just like don't react on it in any way. It's not gonna, it doesn't mean that if once you have a look at time that it will definitely result in worse sleeps, because it might also like turn into this kind of like effort. But in general, yeah, like not knowing, not trying to predict or calculate, do any sort of like sleep math is like really generally good for
yeah. Absolutely, 100%. And there was this one thing I want to sneak in here, which was this one, which when it's kind of like bright outside and you sort of know that it's probably pretty close to 6 a.m., then oftentimes a reason you want to check is actually because you're kind of looking for the 5:45. I've seen 5:45, like, yes, I did it. And it feels good. Like I slept through the night. And it can seem like that's on all accounts a good thing. But the problem, of course, becomes that you've just introduced, more performance anxiety, because like, I made it to 5:45 this night and it feels good. But then your brain will go like, how did you do that? Can you do it again? Et cetera, et cetera. So even when it kind of feels good, it's not actually helpful because it does that to you. And I felt there was something more. Like, I know that there was the okay. Oh yes, it was this one. Because it's basically this one. I feel like nothing's improving, even though I'm trying not to think about sleep as much anymore. And so this is basically a version of a question that is so common, which is, it's basically the question of like, how do I, well, it's two things here. One is, how do I not think about something? And then it's kind of like the disappointment that even not think about something didn't help. But so this is, it's a question that I haven't come across with like the definitive answer or whatever. So I feel it's always so, and maybe there isn't one, so helpful to talk about this one. But what is your thoughts on the fundamental question of like, how do I not think about something?
Yeah, I think like, for me, I divide thoughts in the kind of like categories, in a way that automatic thoughts, that I perceive it as some sort of like just a symptom of fear. So basically, once you have some sort of like object that you are afraid of, you naturally tend to avoid it, and your brain might start like throwing out just ideas, and they're like generate kind of randomly, and sometimes they hit the spot, and you start like catching this idea, and then start like ruminating and developing it more and more and more. In general, it is like a good process, like we need it for survival. But in terms of things that we cannot really control, we cannot control our sleep, we cannot control our emotions, and also those automatic thoughts, because they are automatic, they cannot be controlled. Then there is like other type of like thoughts. For me, is something like more like they're not automatic, they're more like how to say, like conscious. So basically, when you learn, when you educate yourself, this is like also a thought process, but it's more like you kind of like use this neocortex, or I don't know, I don't want to get too technical there, but this is like your rational brain, because you have like your this emotional brain that reacts like immediately. You cannot stop these reactions. No one can. You cannot tell yourself like, right now, like I will stop being anxious, or I will stop having these thoughts. It's not possible for anyone to do that. But just being aware of that there are some thoughts that just happen, and it's just a symptom of fear. There is nothing, they don't bring any sort of like realistic picture or truth. They're not telling you the truth. It's just like a mechanism, like trying to come up with some like ideas, what might, what you should do, or something like this. So taking them as like, not, yeah, and since you cannot like control them, you cannot not to think, and the more you will try to avoid them, the more likely they will stick with you for longer. So the general like my like advice would be just take them as they are, like they're automatic thoughts. They don't mean anything. They are not. They don't give you the realistic picture of what is going on. So if you feel like you need to get rid of those sleep like thoughts related to sleep, you don't really need to get rid of them. Once you stop feeding them, once you stop avoiding them and take them as something like it is just there, you know, like it's just like your brain triggered some like mechanism that's been in everyone for like since the beginning of like the, you know, like when the whole human race created. So we needed that mechanism, right? Like to come up with all the sorts of like protective mechanisms. So I think just take it as it is. Like it doesn't mean anything that's like, once I read this kind of like brilliant sentence, something, don't trust everything you think. So it's like,
Right.
it's perfect because you cannot trust those automatic thoughts because they are not like truthful. So once you start seeing them as what they are, and things get much easier, because then you realize like, okay, now it's just my brain reacting and I don't need to do anything. And you stop any attempts to control it, and then and give yourself some time for it to resolve on its own, and it will go away. Just know that it always the anxiety goes away once you stop feeding it. Yeah.
100%. And I think, you know, just to add or kind of contextualize this, which was, as you were talking, I realized there was kind of a real clue here. And where is it? Oh, here it is. I feel like nothing's improved. And even though I'm trying not to think about sleep as much anymore, and I realized that's kind of like a real clue there, even though I'm trying not to think about sleep anymore, that tells us that, you know, Jocelyn is trying not to think about sleep, which then leads to, of course, with the more you avoid those thoughts,
Yeah.
the more the brain's going to kind of push them. And so it kind of, almost in one sentence, it explains why there isn't more progress, because again, you're trying to avoid certain thoughts. So yeah, 100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very well. Oh, there's some live comments here too. Let's see. How are we on time? I think we are fine. Inusha says, sleeping bad for days and then sleeping good another few days. It's obvious you have headaches because you need to recover for a long time after having insomnia. At least I know a thing, Daniel, you're having very good sleep. Sometimes I do, but not always. But yeah, I think the point here is that, yeah, if you sleep really well and then you feel good, and then you have like a couple nights where you don't sleep much at all and you have headaches, yeah, that was probably because you didn't sleep much, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't have a headache on a night you sleep well, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of my comment on this one. But yeah, any other thoughts, Ali, on this one?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Ali, and you know, hope to have you back soon in the studio.
Thank you. See you.
Okay, thanks, everyone.